Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from New York City's Upper West Side, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast that makes ancient wisdom relevant today. This is episode 1341. Raghunath's not here today, but I'll be handling it myself here. Kastuba Das at your service, and welcome to the show. And, today we have, of course, our very special guest, Vaisesika Das, who has a new book out. We're going to talk about that. But we also have Linda here. Linda. Welcome to you. Linda's been invaluable to Wisdom of the Sages. She's really selflessly taken on the service of helping Raghunath and I get our lives together, which, let me tell you, it's no small task. Linda, welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Let me give you a few announcements while I'm here.
That's why I'm turning to you.
Okay, great. So we've got BRG meetings today at 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
Bhakti Recovery Group.
That's right, the Bhakti Recovery Group. Also, it's Wear Your Merch Monday. So wear your Wisdom of the Sages merch. Help us promote the show. Share on Instagram if you tag us at Wisdom of the Sages. And also hashtag WOTS Merch Monday. We'll share your story too. And just a note that we won't have a show tomorrow or Wednesday, but we'll be back on Thursday at 6 a.m. from Italy.
6 a.m. on Thursday.
Okay,
6 a.m. You notice I have my Wisdom of the Sages merch.
Yes, me too.
Oh yeah, there we go. It's a good way to just, people come up and they say, "What is Wisdom of the Sages? What is that?" Well, you say, "Oh, it's this podcast I listen to all the time." And there you go. You're connecting them,
Right.
That was Linda's idea. It was a good idea. Thank you for that. And so now, I'm just going to jump into it. I'm excited today. One of the people that I really admire most in life is Vaisesika Prabhu. He's always been like you could say like a mentor to me, but just a person I really see embodies the teachings of bhakti. He is like a walking Bhagavad Gita in many ways. He has it all memorized, but he really lives it. And when you're around him, your consciousness always stays very high. A lot of people really look to him as an example in life and for guidance in life. He runs a beautiful, large community of very deep bhakti yoga practitioners out in Silicon Valley. And we're very honored to have you here, Vaisesika Dasa. Welcome to the show.
I could not be more thrilled to be with you, Kastuba, all these great sages and yogis who are on here today.
Well, you were always thrilled. You were thrilled at every moment.
That's when I'm seeing you specifically.
Was it Arjuna that said, "I'm feeling thrilled at every moment"? How is that phrase?
Sanjaya.
Oh yes,
Sanjaya. When he hears the conversation, that it's a thrill at every moment. Yeah.
When he's hearing Bhagavad Gita, that's it, huh? If we just really open up to it, we can be thrilled at every moment.
Yeah, I saw it during the parade this weekend here in New York. When I looked around, everyone was naturally happy without any extra stimuli except for just being spiritually absorbed.
So true. How was your weekend? You were in New York for the big Rath Yatra.
I feel like I'm still in it.
Yeah, you are, I guess.
We flew out here on Thursday and we've been swimming in the ocean out here of association, and we're still going. We have unlimited engagements here in New York. There's so many things happening. So it's hard to tell what day it is. We feel like we're on an eternal weekend, actually.
Can people catch you anywhere while you're in New York? Any public programs?
I believe I'll be at the Bhakti Center tonight, right?
Oh.
Yeah. I'm at the Bhakti Center tonight, and then I'll be here in Brooklyn all day Tuesday. I'm giving class in the morning in Brooklyn.
At the Brooklyn Temple in downtown Brooklyn. Okay, well that's great. That's wonderful to hear. Although I'm a little sad because I'm jumping on an airplane this afternoon and flying off to Italy to join Raghunath there.
We're all sad to hear that.
Okay, we're
happy for those of us
who
are going with you.
Spiritual life is like that. It's a unique blend of emotions, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But for what I want to talk about today is that you just released a book that I just had a chance to go through. It's a beautiful book called The Four Questions: A Pathway to Inner Peace by Vaisesika Dasa. Before we even get into it, why don't just because you want to get this stuff up front, where can people find this book?
It's on Amazon. It's on
Okay.
Barnes and Noble. It's available there electronically.
Okay. So it's easy to find. The Four Questions:
Yeah,
Pathway
we
to.
have a website also called Four Questions, the Four Questions Book.com.
Oh, great.
That also has links to more information and follow-ups and things like that.
Okay. Well, this is, it's when you get this book, immediately what you feel when you hold in your hands is this book is holding a lot of profound truth, but it's not going to be difficult to understand. It's going to be really clear. It's really simple, clear communications of very important ideas in life. And it's a short book. It's got, let's see, about 135 pages. Right. And sometimes we need it like that, just a nice, clear packaging, and but really valuable, practical to put in life. You won't get lost. You'll find, and I think you'll find each little section of it valuable. Why don't you just share with us your inspiration for bringing out this book, what your thoughts were, what you wanted to communicate in general?
Very generally, I wanted to write because Prabhupada, my guru, had written extensively, as everybody knows, and he also encouraged all his disciples to write.
Okay.
And I felt that it was important to follow in his footsteps. And my writing this book was also a result of much of the many of the programs that I do in Silicon Valley and elsewhere that are at corporates. I go to places like Google and Salesforce and so forth. And I take the message that I got from Bhagavad Gita, but try to present it in such a way that it resonates with the modern mindset and
Sure.
a vocabulary. And very specifically, this book is what I consider to be spiritual technology. Since I come from the land of technology
Right.
in Silicon Valley, I wanted to present something like a modem that you can take with you and you can set up anywhere and connect to the spiritual sky, the spiritual energy. And that's exactly what the ancients talked about. They had various kinds of technology through which they could connect to the higher regions. And this book follows the main teaching of the Vedas, which starts with Tato Brahma Jignasa, which is the first technology it recommends and the gateway to all spiritual experiences and enlightenment, which is the question.
Now is the time to inquire, huh?
Yeah, and in the beginning of the book, I modified that a little bit. I said, now is your time to inquire.
Uh-huh.
As this is a book for the reader to realize that your spiritual enlightenment is in your hands. And if you have the technology, then you can use it anywhere at any time. That's the idea.
One thing that struck, I love the introduction, and I find that deep thinkers, within like the quasi-spiritual world of spiritual teachers and spiritual books or so-called spirit, a lot of times, I don't know, I think it was Nietzsche who said he had this. I really like this statement of his, but he said that they muddy the waters to make them seem deep.
Mhm.
Sometimes in order to kind of have to pose as like deeply spiritual, you're vague or something like that, and it sounds very deep. It's so deep I can't understand it. Well, yeah, it's just because it's so vague. It's not really getting to the point. I find deep spiritual thinkers, they take profound ideas and they simplify them. And sometimes they make them so sometimes they're so simple. It's like, why didn't I realize that all along? In your introduction, what I really walked away with is we almost feel like we're in a weak position if we're asking a question, right? It's like I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. It seems like the answerer is the one that's really in the driver's seat. But the way you made it out is actually by asking questions, it puts you in the driver's seat. That like we all have this ability sitting there to ask a question of great consequence, and that's a tremendous power just lying dormant there if we don't use it. But at any moment, we have the ability to engage it.
So true, Kaustuba. In fact, according to rhetoricians, whoever's asking the questions in a conversation is leading the conversation. Oftentimes, I might think while I'm conversing that I have to tell.
Uh-huh.
But those who even want to lead the conversation in a productive way would know the science of asking questions. We call it becoming a master asker.
Okay. And you focus the reader on the particular potential of asking big questions, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
all kind of trivial questions we could use this ability to engage our questioning on trivial or topics, but you focus the reader on big questions.
Yeah. And really, the quality of our questions determines the quality of our life because the word question, as we can discern by hearing the word, has the word quest in it. In fact, that's where it comes from.
Never even
The
noticed that.
idea
You
of a
see?
question. Huh?
Right there. I never even noticed that.
Yeah, it's amazing. The etymology of it takes us back to the search for the Holy Grail, according to the history of the word question. And it means quest. And it talks about in the OED, Oxford English Dictionary, about how the word question, it comes from quest, which means when you ask a question, you start on a journey, you're going somewhere. And the Vedas say if you ask what you're saying is the big question, ask about something that's to us now intangible, that's beyond um, the physical world. And the Vedas say the question mark is a kind of technology, or I say in the book that the question mark is the most powerful punctuation mark in any language. And the Vedas, or these ancient wisdom literatures, say use it to your benefit to discover the mysteries of yourself, the mysteries of the source of yourself, and what's beyond the universe. As an example, when I was a kid, my brother and I used to lie in the backyard and on our backs and look at the starry sky at night. And I'd ask, what's beyond that?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah. And eventually, some of the answers came to me.
And
So,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, I think maybe a lot of people assume that these really big questions that nobody knows the answer. It's almost like not even worth asking.
Yeah. So I addressed that in the book. There's two sides of a coin, which the two sides are called blind faith. You may have somebody who says, "Oh, that's just blind faith. Faith, something insubstantial. It's non-provable, and so forth." And then, but people forget about the other side of the coin, which is blind doubt. If you doubt the possibilities, like a, a child may look at the horizon and say, "Well, that's the end of the earth," and then the father says, "No, actually, there's much more beyond that." And then the son may say, "No, I don't believe it because I can't see it." So blind faith and blind doubt are equally unproductive.
Hmm.
So there is a way in which a person who wants to know the answers must be open to the fact that there may be something beyond my perceptual horizon right now,
Right.
and be bold enough to ask the big questions. I guess we get so disappointed with incomplete answers that uh, or we're indoctrinated in the way that you mentioned that maybe there's no answers to anything. But this is a very pessimistic view. And human beings, when they're turned on to the fact that they have the capability of asking bigger questions that go beyond just survival questions, how am I going to eat, where am I going to sleep, and so forth, and can ask, why do I exist? That's a metaphysical question. And it's very penetrating when we ask ourselves why we're doing things. That's the first question in the book. What's my purpose? We can go a week, we can go a month, we could go a year, we could go a lifetime without ever asking why I'm here. What's the purpose of my life? And philosophers who take time to think about things, for instance, Socrates said the unexamined life isn't worth living. So there's so much more beyond all of our senses. And it's exciting to think that the answers could be forthcoming if I just sincerely ask. And I point this out in the book, in the right attitude. If I ask the question,
Yeah.
everything's available.
I wanted to go there actually. I wanted to ask, but maybe uh, as a prelude to it, this question. You mentioned that there are things that lie beyond the perception, like the perception of our eyes, for instance, things that we can't see. But it seems like the big questions seem to lie there, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't still be questions. They would have already been answered for everyone. Um, and we do get indoctrinated, I believe, and we get people that society recognizes as being knowing more than the rest of us. And they may have a field, like we talk a lot about this on the podcast, like you may have people in the field of science, some of these popular scientists, that and they'll bring up these questions and they'll say nobody knows. Maybe someday we'll know through our perception, but right now nobody knows. It's kind of an assumption on their part. But this idea that it's a simple idea and it shouldn't be so hard for us to grasp it. Maybe just as you said, a child may learn from a parent that there's more beyond the horizon because the parent's been there. The parent can give the testimony to it. And here's another way to access information. It's a very valid way to access information, that maybe by asking big questions. You gave the example of the Buddha, asking, what is the cause of the misery in this world?
Mhm.
It's a big question. Why do we suffer? Why do we suffer? Big questions like that. But if we're going to pursue these really important lives that Socrates is saying it makes life worth living, life without it is really not, we really haven't accessed this potential. What will be important for the questioner? Is it merely just the question itself, or does more need to be invested in the question or the questioning, the act of questioning that will open up the potential to receive rewarding answers?
Let me first address what you said earlier about the idea that nobody knows. That's a logical fallacy.
Mm.
If you say nobody knows, then you must be all-knowing
No,
to know that
that's true.
nobody knows. You say there's no God, then there's nobody omniscient, then you're omniscient, because how would you know that? And that opens the door to the possibilities. And when we are given permission to ask for ourselves and say, we are complete in ourselves as long as we're open to hear the truth, which is one of the definitions of sincerity. And we ask with a sincere heart, open to the answer. That's one of the questions. It's the third question that I listed, which says, what is the lesson?
It's a lesson. I love that. Yeah.
So many things happen to us. Self-help 101 is it's not what happens to us, it's what we do about what happens. But the technology, as I keep calling it, of the question means you can do something very active. It's a process through which when something happens to us and we ask the question, why did it happen? That takes us a long way past being victims or things happen randomly. I'm assuming there must be an intelligence behind it. There must be some purpose for me in this lifetime if I'm asking what the lesson is.
It's an interesting assumption to work with, right? Sometimes there is an element of faith. Let me assume that there's some kind of meaning to this, and then let's pursue that. And if you start by saying, well, you can't prove that there's any meaning to it, well, then okay, then you're just stuck there.
It's very practical also. It's not even a metaphysical question. We have a default mode, at least I do, which is why would such a thing happen to me? I never did anything wrong, or why not somebody else? Why me? Why does this happen? Why was this visited upon me? That's such a misery. But if I look at the universe as a cosmic schoolhouse rather than a place where I'm going to be well adjusted and comfortable, and I'm always asking the question, what's the lesson? Then I become aligned to the purpose of the universe, which is to teach me something and to ever increasingly come into my holistic self, which means that I know my part in the universe. I know why I'm here. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita talks about, how the way of finding the truth, as you were alluding to earlier, what is the mindset? Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, upadakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina, that be open and humble, hungry and humble, and don't assume that you know everything. And there's a mantra I really like. I think I included it in the book. I heard it on a radio interview years ago, where somebody who was corrected during the interview, somebody said, "Oh, you can't say that," or whatever it was. And he said, "Okay, I live to be corrected." I pulled over my car and I wrote it in my notebook, and I said, "I'm going to keep that." And that's the spirit of Bhagavad Gita. What is it? What is the self-correcting path? As to be open to the idea that there's a logical purpose behind the universe, the logos, which means that everything has an intelligence behind it, and there's a real journey, a purpose to it. And we can align with that through asking the question, what's the lesson behind it?
It's a great way to live, I think. You know, in other words, like you're not a native New Yorker here, but you get here and you see the subways running, right? You go down to the platform, you sit there for a few days, you see, oh, they arrive on schedule, you know. Seems like it's a lot of thought went into building this thing, you know, and and it would seem logical that there must be a map. There must be something to help me understand how to make the most of this this um this facility, right? It would seem logical. And then someone may say, well, there's no proof that there's any map to this. And then you can just sit there, okay, and never access, you know, what's available to you. Or you could go in with the assumption, there must be a map. Let me go and find it. It'll have answers for me. I can ask it questions. It'll give me answers.
Yeah, and beyond it, I mean, refer a demonstrative pronoun it points to something named earlier. But what is it? One of the main messages of the Bhagavad Gita is there's a benevolent personality behind everything. Everything's meant for our improvement and to bring us to the highest, into our highest potential. And just regarding the subway, when I was in London a couple of years ago, I was invited to somebody's house, and the roommate of the person was upstairs doing his work, which part of which was on his computer, working remotely. He was helping to run the London subway system.
Wow.
He was a young person, and I peeked in the door, and there he was on a computer screen, and he was helping to run the subway and make sure it was running on
Just do that from home.
schedule. So I was thinking, who knew there's this guy sitting in a room in Harrow in an apartment who's running your train for you and making sure that the switch opens in the right place. And then I thought, the way you're talking about of the universe, we don't know who's running the switches here. We just know they're working properly. If you're able to ask the question, who's behind this and what's my part in it? If you're able to ask that simple question, then there is an answer. It's forthcoming, and you can go that way and find the personality behind the universe. And that makes all the difference, doesn't it?
It sure does. Why don't we go ahead and why don't we just lay out the four questions? What are the big four questions that you're asking in the book or encouraging?
Question number one, what's my purpose? Question number two, how may I be of service? Question number three, what is the lesson? And question number four, where am I investing my attention right now.
Excellent. Okay. 4 big questions. Let's start with number 1. What is my purpose? You used a phrase there that I found very interesting. Marrying our purpose. Could you speak a little bit about the question, what is my purpose, and how do we marry our purpose, or why should we marry our purpose? How do we know it's worth marrying?
Consciousness is purposeful. We have will, we have volition, and there's a way in which we're always trying to find meaning behind everything. My mother was a sociologist, and she studied symbolism in human society, and she was always talking about how humans try to find meaning, and they create symbols or they relate to various emblems and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the idea of the logos, which has come into this phrase now, what's your logo? A company starts with the idea that there's a purpose behind it. Everybody knows that. If you start a company and they go, what do you exist for? It's like, I don't know. What kind of company is that? You know, Business 101 is start with your vision mission. So our lives also have that. It's so exciting when you know where you're going. And to take the time to ask, what's the purpose? If you stand outside a baseball game somewhere and just a clipboard and you ask people, what's your purpose? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying every might say, other people might have more comprehensible answers, but it's so clarifying when you take time to discover what is the purpose of my life. Even if you just take a little time and write down your priorities, you'll notice that your mind becomes focused and you become energized, because we want to go somewhere specific and we don't want to just leave everything to randomness here and be pulled along by the forces of nature.
Do you have some practical advice or practical application around identifying one's purpose?
Yes, I do. And I've done it myself, and it's really helped me a lot. Get a legal pad
Okay.
and a pen. Bic recommends to use a Bic pen.
And we don't want to use an illegal pad.
Don't use an illegal pad. I say legal pad because it gives a psychological advantage. You're thinking, oh, I have a lot to say here. And sit down in a quiet place and give yourself time. Put a do not disturb sign on your door and put one on your own mind. And we're not doing anything else right now except being introspective. And take a little time. It's amazing how purpose-driven we really are, but we don't take time to prioritize or put them in order. So start with, what are my priorities? What's the most important things to me in my life? And if you put them on paper, first brainstorm, don't worry that they're in the right order, but just start writing them down. What's most important to me? This is a highly enlightening exercise. And what you'll find is, you might first feel that it's a little confronting that, oh, well, I don't want to know what my purpose is. I'd rather live in a random world where I just go mindlessly from one thing to the next and follow whatever my routine is now. It's good enough. That's not very exciting in life. In fact, it's something that the Srimad Bhagavatam says, better a moment of full consciousness than a lifetime of scrolling.
Mm.
So if you have a time for yourself, you're so intelligent because you're being informed by a higher intelligence. All of us are at every second. And if we can tune ourselves in by being a little quiet and just asking ourselves, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? Write it at the top of the page. And you'll find that your intuition comes in very strongly when you do that. And you'll be amazed. I was amazed and how much I miss when I don't ask that question. So then you write them down, as many purposes as possible, and then let it marinate and think about it. As you're walking around, you'll think, oh no, this one goes a little higher. Discuss it with one of your friends or your significant other, and you'll put things in place. And when you get things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll start to see a pattern. It's like, now I know what I really live for. one of the points I made in the book is that people oftentimes don't think about this until they get noticed that they're going to have to leave this present body, which we all have to do. And it can come unexpectedly. And a woman wrote a book about this. She was a hospice nurse. She interviewed so many people about their lives. And she said, most people become very introspective, but it's at the last minute. So what this is doing, what is my purpose? Like, do it now. That's what, and the Bhagavatam, Coach Shriva Prabhu, is like, it gives us full permission. It says, your main purpose in life is to ask this question. The other stuff is just support system. Don't get so absorbed in maintenance, because maintenance is not that hard. Just get a routine going to maintain yourself, but use it all to be very focused on what my highest purpose is.
In Sanskrit, often the word they'll use for that is dharma, right? What is my dharma? What is it then? And there's two different ideas about dharma, right? There's like kind of a relative dharma according to where I'm at and at this particular time and these particular circumstances. Maybe it's my dharma to be a mother or a father, or in the workplace I may have a particular dharma. It may not be my dharma down the road, but it is for now. And then there's kind of like higher eternal dharma that all living beings share. This deepest purpose of all, And how do we ever get there if we don't ask these questions, right?
Well, that brings us to the second question.
Okay.
The dharma.
How may I be of service?
That's it. That is an aligning question. And I'll just speak about it in a very practical way that maybe everyone can relate to. Okay. Have you ever been in an awkward social setting? For instance, maybe you go to
an awkward social setting.
It's awkward being a human. Social interaction is very complicated, and we have our egos. How do I look? Did I dress right? Do I fit in here? Do people really like me? Even family gatherings, people on their way to Thanksgiving at their home.
Those are the most awkward for me.
Very awkward. And maybe if you're a newcomer into a group, you walk into a meeting, whatever, you think, should I sit here? Should I sit in the back? What am I supposed to do? So this is almost, as you're pointing out, Kashuva Prabhu, humorously, but it's really true. We feel awkward in this world. So how do we align? Here's a suggestion. When you go to, for instance, a social gathering, when you get there, ask this question of somebody who looks like they know what's happening there. How may I be of service? Now, let's just say, I'll give you a hypothetical. You walk into a place where you feel like, should I talk to the door person? Should I, stand over in the corner, wait till somebody talk to me? Go ask somebody how you can help. What can I do? And so let's just say they say, oh yeah, we got to set up these chairs. You want to help? I say, yeah. Now, instantly you're going to feel the awkwardness is going to go away, because all of a sudden you're an insider. Right. And people who now are walking in and going, they go, oh, this guy works here. He's part of the thing.
Right.
And this is Dharma, how to be part of the real thing. The real thing is service. And this is what Lord Chaitanya taught to his disciples. He said, if you want to be aligned, if you want Dharma, keep asking this question, how may I be of service? When I think in terms of, why aren't people serving me enough? You get on airlines like, where's my napkin? He just brought me a cup, no napkin. Where's the where's the snack or whatever? We become agitated immediately because that's not our wheelhouse. Our thing is service.
You mentioned this kind of construct, enjoyment, renunciation, or dedication. Could you speak on that?
Yeah, the three paths. This is generalized in the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So there's an idea that the material world is so inconvenient, and one who comes to the conclusion it's never going to work out, that person may then just say, let's forget the whole thing. Let me help with a number line. In a number line, you have negative numbers, 0, and the positive numbers. Now, the path of material progress and enjoyment is called the negative numbers, and it's represented by karma. Karma is a debt you have to pay. So let's just say you're enjoying yourself in New York City on a credit card, and then later when you get home, you're going to have to pay the debt. this is what the Vedas say are the negative numbers. You're working for something in which you're accumulating more debt. So really, they say you're going further and further. The numbers are getting, well, technically they're not bigger because they're negative.
They're going farther.
That's the conundrum of the material world. Like, I thought I was doing well, but now I'm more entangled. So then one might come to the conclusion that let's just give up the whole deal. And that means coming to zero. And there are many philosophies which accommodate that, say, you're zero, there is nothing beyond this.
Peace in zero.
Yeah, peace in zero. But actually, the Vedas say you can't stay there because we're conscious beings, and conscious beings want love. They want aesthetic beauty. They want relationship, just like if you're flying on a plane. After 4 hours, you get me out of here. That's why they put a television in front of everybody now on the seats. Like, just stay calm and look at the little, little people on the screen. You'll be okay. Don't freak out. We'll get you on the ground soon. So we can't stay at zero. But bhakti is the positive number. It's the love. It's the aesthetic beauty. It's the breaking bread together, but it's for the higher purpose. And when we have that, then we have what our soul wants, which is full engagement, but in service and in love.
So the question, how may it be of service, is like a direct path to that.
It's so aligning. Again, the technology, questions are a technology. They immediately align us. According to the quality of our questions, we'll be aligned accordingly. And if we ask the question, how may I be of service? You brought up the word dharma.
Yeah.
That puts us in dharma. And it's the first question that Sanatana Goswami asked to his teacher, Sri Chaitanya. He said, who am I? Why do I exist? What's my purpose? And Lord Chaitanya said, you're a servant. That was his answer. That's your dharma. Your eternal occupation is to serve. And it's counterintuitive because we're always trained, be the master. You be the boss. And then some philosophy says there is no boss. But Bhakti said there is a boss and you're the servant, and you be happy.
You know, I like the way you started with that, with like saying, say you attend some public event and you spoke about awkwardness, and we may feel awkward. We may feel isolated, lonely, alienated. We show up there, nobody talks to us, we don't talk to anyone, we walk away, and we continue to live in our body. And I think that's an experience that's very common, particularly nowadays, because you know we generally tend to work far from where we live and live far from our family and all of that, and in ways that have never, it's never been like that historically to the extent that it is right now. So there's this kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of discomfort in life, or some kind of steady alienation that we're feeling as we go through life. And just a simple question like, how may it be of service, which actually sounds like, why do I want to serve? But actually it begins to open up a door to solving, to kind of resolving all of that inner malaise. Is that the word I'm looking for, or something?
Yeah, malaise is a perfect word. Yeah.
And so that's maybe like, that's the micro, you know, model of it. But then there's this kind of macro malaise that we have with the universe, you know, that's been going on for many, many, many lifetimes. And it's still the same, the answer is still the same question. How may it be of service? That this one question can kind of resolve our long-standing, you know, cosmic discomfort that we're stuck in.
This is the opening of the book. It's a quote from the Vedanta Sutra, which is a summary of all the Upanishads, which are the first transcendental part of the Vedas. For those who say, enough's enough, I want to know what's going on here. I'm not satisfied with adjusting to the material world. I want to know who I am. And all the hundreds of aphorisms in the Upanishads are then summarized in the Vedanta Sutra. And the first point is, ask the big question. It's inviting us. It's calling us to do that.
To do it now.
Do it now. Ask now while you have the chance. And now means, in fact, Prabhupada explains this in the word atato brahma jignasa. Atato means therefore. and there's a lot in these aphorisms. They're meant to be unpacked. It says, therefore, because you've tried everything else and it didn't work,
Right.
therefore, because you've been in so many different bodies, and therefore, because now you're a human, human is a special technology meant to ask the question, the big question, and say, go ahead, now you can do it. Now
Only
you
when
have
you're
a
human do
chance.
they give you that machine, that technology. Otherwise,
Yeah, you're
kind of
open to
barred
all
from
the
it.
secrets of the universe. You just have to ask. That's the main thing. And that's the opening point of the summary of all the transcendental parts of the Vedas is ask the right question. Don't be afraid to do that. And if I may, I'll just give an analogy because it's so perfect and I think of it frequently. It's the example of the tiny screw that Prabhupada gave. I
Okay.
relate to this because I remember when I was a kid in fourth grade and we used to have these, they'd wheel in a projector and all the kids would get happy because we were going to watch a movie rather than listen to the teacher. And some kid, while the teacher was out of the room, unscrewed a little part of it was just a tiny screw and it came out and the projector wouldn't work. And we were very upset, the kids were. Prabhupada says, when a little screw is in the machine, it's meant to serve, then it has a mighty purpose. It's really doing something that is important. And then when it falls out and it's in a far-flung place by itself, if you find it, you won't get 1 penny for it on what's that place where you sell everything?
Pawn shop or the pawn
No,
shop?
online.
Oh, eBay or
Yeah, try
Etsy or
selling a tiny screw on eBay. You won't get a penny for it. And so it doesn't have any significance. So he said, we're like that. When we're connected in service, then we're so valuable and we feel it ourselves immediately. But as soon as we're disjointed, we fall out of our dharma, our service, then
right.
we feel worthless. There's this sense of like, what am I here for? And we become disoriented.
Okay, that's very helpful. Now you've spoken a little bit on question 3, but why don't we just go a little bit deeper into it? What is the lesson?
Oh, it's a heavy question, and it's definitely the hardest one to ask, because when we're suffering, and again, I don't recommend that we impose this upon others. We have to gently introduce it in our own lives because suffering is real, in a sense that although it's temporary, it's still when we're in a situation in this world where we're hurting, it's a very hard situation to be in and to be glib and just say, well, just ask the question, what's the lesson behind this? It can be a little abrupt in that
Sure.
circumstance. They have to be very careful with this question, but it is extremely powerful and it comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the essence of wisdom in the sages.
Yes.
It's a famous verse that says Tenu kampam susamikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam, which is an aligning verse that says, a person who takes the whole universe as an opportunity to learn and become and improve him or herself by asking, what is this meant to teach me? So that person becomes eligible to go back to the spiritual world. So it's a maturing process. When things happen to us that seem like reversals of fortune, we have to be ready to gently with ourselves start to ask that question, why? Why did this happen? And
I,
yeah,
I was just going to say that sometimes I see these questions have playing the function of aphorisms.
hmm,
That because as soon as you start to feel the pain, the mind will have its tendency to wallow for
hmm.
self-pity or resentment or anger, focus externally. But if, like an aphorism, if we just say, "Hold it," what is if we become accustomed to, uh, if it becomes our regular practice, that when I feel that pinch, let me ask this question, and that just stops the negative momentum, and immediately turns it around, and now you're moving in a positive direction. What is the lesson?
And that's so true, Kashtuba. I like that because the mind has its algorithms and
Hmm.
they get set in a certain direction.
Loops.
And the question mark, and especially this question, what's the lesson, it changes the algorithm that overwrites the default that's come in. It's just that you're entitled to everything and everything should go perfectly. You should be comfortable. You'll be happy if you drink Coca-Cola, et cetera, et cetera. And all these kinds of ideas then are pervasive. They're very powerful forces in our mind. And when we introduce the wisdom of the ancient literatures, which are inviting us to move to higher ground, and we use the question mark as that tool, as you're saying, I love how you put that. Just use it as an aphorism to yourself. Keep asking yourself, what's the lesson? It helps in the process of forgiveness also. As in forgiveness, we're hurting because somebody perhaps betrayed our trust. And that hurts. And it's really hard to rectify. But if I take it to higher ground and I don't become complicit by saying that I'm a victim, and I say, what's the lesson? What was I meant to learn? We might go as far as coming to this concept of karma. We're on a continuum. Not many people want to go there because why do bad things happen to good people? It's like, let's not talk about it. Well, maybe talk about it, talk amongst yourselves inside your own heart and try to see like, maybe I was involved in something where I betrayed somebody's trust and maybe it came back to me. That could come up and it could help to balance out the way I look at the world and the way I relate to people. But as you said, using it as an aphorism and keep it going. Everything can teach us something. There's a lesson in, as the Bhagavatam says, in every aspect of nature. There's a lesson waiting to be imbibed if we're able to keep that aphorism going. What's the lesson behind this?
Well, Prabhu, that brings us to question number 4. Big one. Where am I investing my attention right now?
This one's easier to ask.
Okay.
And we all have the experience of feeling satisfied when we're absorbed in the right thing. For instance, I've heard a quote. It's amazing how little you get done when you're not actually working on what you're supposed to work on. I think of writing. In order to write, I have to get in a zone. I have to cross over. It's like one of those pictures, if you've ever seen Kushtuba, where you look at it and it looks nondescript, but if you stare at it long enough, you flip over into a
We
vision.
talk about those all the time here.
Oh, you do?
They're called a stereogram, I think. Something stereogram, but yes.
It's like that. It's after looking at it for some time, something in your brain clicks, and then all of a sudden you can see what's in the apparently random bubbles or whatever they are. And when we become absorbed in doing what a worthy task, we all have this sense of feeling satisfied. And you yourself have said, which I've always appreciated amongst many of your teachings, is that real progress occurs in absorption, when we're really absorbed. And this question brings us to a sense of how powerful we actually are. We may forget our own power. We're conscious entities. Consciousness is amazing. Wherever we point our consciousness, there's a creative process that takes place. We're little creators of everything that's in our life. Where attention goes, energy flows. And so this is a realigning question. Where am I investing my attention right now? In fact, I argue.
In other words, it's of such value, right? It's something.
It's our only value. Actually, our only real asset is our attention. And we get to choose where we're placing it. That's a big thing. And so what I argue in the book is, because we're conscious beings and because we're creative, wherever we place our attention, which is up to us, if we're able to find a discipline through which we can actually appreciate who we are and what the value of where we're placing our attention is. And we ask this question, it brings us, where am I investing? So now we think of return on investment, ROI, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those who know about money, they attend to everything, every penny. They make sure they pay their bill at the last minute, so the cash flow is going. The money's working for them all the time. They know about compound interest, one of the great wonders of the world, and so forth, right? So we call it return on investment. How's that going for you? But what we call it in the book is return on attention, ROA. And the
Okay.
Bhagavad Gita addresses this. Krishna says, if you're meditating on things, be careful, because you're going to go there. You actually
Oh yeah.
become one with those things. For instance, if you meditate on a car and you go in, and one of the first lessons I learned when buying a car, I read an article. It said, don't love the car won't love you back. And if we love material objects, we develop a sangha, or a connection to them. Krishna says, dhyayato vishayam pumsam sangasteshu bhajayate. When you meditate, he says, on an object, you put your attention there, it becomes one with you. And then that becomes a problem. We're carrying around all these things. So the Bhagavad Gita is teaching us, learn to direct your attention to Krishna. And as I heard you say when we were together in London last year at Studio 108, you'd solved everybody's problem. I remember that. It was a moment of reckoning, because somebody was asking about how to overcome anxiety and all the problems. And you said, well, there's one real solution. It's to think of Krishna. Why didn't I think of that? What a great answer. It's there in the Bhagavad Gita. It's the main point. Man mana bhava mad bhakto. And if you do that, then you have everything, because Krishna is the source of everything. It's like watering the root of a tree. Then all the branches are taken care of. So it's the most consequential answer. When we ask this question, where am I investing my attention right now? We can go from moment to moment and use this as an aphorism and continue asking the question to realign, because the mind wants to go to crazy places. And he's like, why do you want to go there, sir? I mean, what are you gonna get out of that? What happens if you've ever been scrolling and then you come across something that says, you're going to rot your brain by doing this, and you go, oh, well, turn it off, So if we become highly informed, and we are able to point our attention to Krishna, then we'll feel naturally happy. And what's more, we won't miss anything, because that's where everything comes from.
Well, this is great and so helpful. And in the introduction, it was really kind of like an eye opener, the way that you kind of framed questioning, that it's really this dormant power, tremendous power that we all possess, that we may not be engaging, or we may not be engaging in the most effective way to find a satisfying life. And so you also kind of framed this, you use this phrase, our power is always in the present moment. Very, very interesting, right? In other words, it's not lying in the future. It's here right now. This is where, we all want power. We all probably often feel powerless. I have this power. It's right here in this moment. And then you kind of qualified this thing about where our attention goes by using the term full attention. You spoke on full attention. And it's we had a gathering in my home, some Wisdom of the Sages listeners that were in town on Friday evening, and we got together. We were reading the 15th chapter. Such an important chapter, such condensed wisdom in that chapter. And in the very last verse, to wrap things up, Krishna says, this is the greatest secret of all the ancient scriptures, what I just shared with you. And we tried something. And I thought, you're actually a good person. Do you recall, did Prabhupada ever say that we should study these books backwards and forwards? Or am I just thinking that? I know
He said
from every angle.
He said thoroughly threadbare.
Thoroughly threadbare, okay.
Although I must say, we have a system at our center in California where we memorize certain parts and we have to do the highest level that you can achieve is you do them forwards and then backwards.
Well, we try because okay, well then what? Sometimes it's interesting to read something backwards, right? Because it
Not
makes you ask
literally backwards,
questions.
but
Yeah, but yeah, but it makes you ask questions.
yeah.
In other words, this is the greatest secret of all the ancient scriptures. Oh, what is the greatest secret of all the? And then you go backwards to find the answer.
I
And
see.
there Krishna says, whoever knows me as the Purushottama, as that supreme
Mm.
person, right? Without doubting, is the knower of everything. And they therefore, and this is part of that secret, they engage in devotional service to me. And Krishna uses the term sarva bhavena, right? Like with full attention, with full heart, right? Fully invested. That's where you really then you really get to then you really know everything. You find the deepest answers, right? You to the biggest questions. So, any case, Prabhu, you are my example of that fully hearted, devoted questioner and servant and so on. You really live what you're sharing in your book, and we appreciate that so much.
Well, as they say in Japan, Kaushtuba Prabhu Kochira Koso, right back at you.
Kachurko, so back at you again. Thank you so much for joining us today, Prabhu.
Oh, come on. It's my favorite place to be. Thanks, everybody. Great to be with you. Keep up the great work. It's amazing what you're doing. And thank you, Kaushtuba Prabhu and Raghunath Prabhu and Linda and all the staff you have. It's just changing the world. Wisdom of the
Uh,
Sages.
tell us again about the website for the book.
The 4questionsbook.com. And it's also, if you go on to Amazon or Barnes and Noble and you put in the 4 questions, a pathway to inner peace. There are a few other books called 4 questions, but
Okay.
4 questions, a pathway to inner peace, you'll find it there. Especially if you put my name in, it'll come up.
Wonderful. I really wish I could be with you tonight, but I guess the Lord calls us, and we all have a service in different places, right?
Well, definitely the
Purposes.
world needs you everywhere, Kaushtuba. Thanks for walking the earth, and please keep it up.
I'm just trying to walk the earth in your footsteps. That's all.
And we could keep this going for a while.
But everybody, again, it's what day is it, Linda?
It's Wear Your Merch Monday.
Okay, Wear Your Merch Monday. Oh, we got Greg DeGasco. He's wearing his merch over there.
Yeah.
Martine, she's wearing her merch. Everybody's catching on. Everybody's catching on.
Post
And I
on
see Nityananda
Instagram.
Chandra. We see Lalita Kishori. A lot of people doing it. Okay. Maya, are you wearing merch? I can't see. Is it? Yes? Yes. Osadu Sangha. Okay. You're wearing other merch, but that's great too. All right, everybody. It's been wonderful being with you today. We're off the next 2 days, Linda. Next
We're
2
off.
days. We're going to be in transit, but we'll be back. It's always fun. The shows from Villa Vrindavan in Tuscany are always interesting ones, and it's always with a great crowd of enthusiastic Wisdom of the Sages people. So we'll look forward to being with you in Italy on Thursday.
Thursday at 6
a.m.
a.m.
Eastern
Eastern.
And
That's
Bob
right.
is saying no earthquakes this year. Last time we were during the show, there's an earthquake. Who knows what'll happen this year? But whatever it is, we'll ask ourselves, what is the lesson? Thank you so much again, Vaisesika Prabhu. It's a beautiful day for a beautiful day, everyone. And as Raghunath always says, let the magic flow. Very well, everyone.